Hello, peeps and creeps, and welcome to Fright Club and another episode of Monday Night Frights. As always, joining me on the call tonight is our good pal, Danny.
Hello.
What's the crack, Danny?
Usual. Ready for lockdown part 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Oh, God. Don't start with fucking more
Of course,
lockdowns.
I know. Let's move on. Let's move swiftly past lockdown and COVID chat because that's all you hear about these days.
I know.
Let's talk about tonight's topic.
Let's talk about, and what is tonight's topic? It is The Simpsons, Treehouse of Horror, Part 2.
Part 2.
Season 3, Episode 6, I believe this is. And this is, I think it's better than the first one. What do you think?
I
do, yeah.
No, I rewatched it again today before the call, and I enjoyed it. But no, I think the first one is still a bit more memorable. I'd be interested if we as we go along, because obviously we intend to do more of these. But as we go along, we kind of rank them.
We definitely will. We'll be doing a ranking of some kind after every certain amount of episodes. Maybe we'll say, oh, this is now our new favorite. But
yeah, I'm gonna have to make a note. I'm gonna have to remember to note down. But no, I still think after watching that one today, yes, I enjoyed it. But I still think one is, out of the two so far, one is still my favorite.
Right. Well, I loved the Raven segment from the first one, as we spoke about. And if you haven't seen our previous episode where we covered the Treehouse of Horror Part 1, you can look down on our Instagram and check it out on our IGTV. It was from a few weeks ago. But the reason why, I'll tell you why I enjoyed this this whole episode more, was because of Mr. Burns. And we'll get there. Mr. Burns turns up in the third segment, but we'll get there eventually.
That is a great bit, yeah.
He's he's the best, so... but before we go any further, I forgot to show you this fucking on the first episode.
What?
It's a little Bart plush. I had it sitting and all. I was like, oh, I must show the Bart plush. I actually won that from one of the claw machines in America, of all places.
Amazing.
It was amazing.
Now you just need to do him up like the Raven or something. Or what's he? The start of this one when he's got the hood and the axe.
I know.
A wee black hood and an axe.
But yeah, it was. I won it in America. We were on a road trip somewhere around the southern states of America, and I won it. And I still had it. I was like, oh, I still have that. Bart found it whenever we were doing the first episode, and fucking forgot to show you. So there you go. He's sitting there.
There you are.
I'll get him on the shelf somewhere behind me here.
That's definitely next time we do a Treehouse of Horror, he's got to be sitting
100%.
behind you.
100%. One thing I did notice about this episode, it starts off the same with the Marge intro, the Frankenstein intro. And she's basically saying, oh, I told you this last time and your kids still watched it and that usual sort of gag. I thought that was pretty clever to do it again. And also,
I think this may be the final time they do it. I think they either stopped here or they do it in the next one, but that's it. I think it was taking too much time to animate for a bit that they felt was running dry. So they stopped that after this one. But I enjoy it. I think it's good because obviously it's riffing on Frankenstein, and it's kind of riffing on parents complaining about programs that are essentially for kids.
I think that was the most important thing about it, was that they were making a joke about the fact that it is a kids show, but it's got adult humor in it, and she even says that there's going to be some swearing in it, which I don't know if there is. I can't remember if there was. I couldn't pick up on any swearing.
No, but again, that's the thing with Simpsons. Swearing is that subtle that if it does happen, you don't really notice it. It's not like Family Guy or American Dad or any of them sort of ones. The humor is a lot more subtle. The adult humor is a lot more subtle.
Yeah. And then from that we go to the cemetery gates, and we get the same opening where it comes up, Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. We push through the cemetery gates and we get all the tombstones, which I made a point of going like, right, I need to watch these tombstones this time around because I'd missed the last one. But I remember seeing Bambi's mum was on there. Jim Morrison was on there with like a hippie, and it looked like Jim Morrison's grave with all the flowers painted on it and stuff. What other ones was on there? There was
because this time I was watching it's the first time that they do the credits with the it'll be the names. The names with the kind of horror edits.
There was Malevolent Matt Groening.
The Malevolent Matt Groening,
James Hell Brooks.
Yep.
Which that was the first one. Yeah, this was
the first time they did that. Yeah, and then I think that one, the gravestones, I think doesn't last much longer after this, but the horror credits becomes a running thing from here.
Yeah, that's like
I was watching those.
Gag. Yeah, because I remember that from when I was watching the first episode. I was kind of like, oh, I thought they all had funny weird horror names. But yeah, so this doesn't actually start until this episode. The other one was Cajun cooking. Was something that was on the tombstone, which I thought was funny. But so, and I also noticed that this episode, although it's split into 3 segments, the segments don't have actual titles.
No, that's I think that's I didn't like that, but I think that's one of the things that this time watching it, I was like, I don't like that it doesn't have the title card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't mind it because obviously it's meant to be, the whole idea is they're having nightmares, and it just kind of goes like ooh into a nightmare.
It's not them. It's not them telling the story like the first one. This one is they're actually having nightmares, and basically the whole point of this is that it's Halloween. They've come back from trick or treating, and Bart has got the mask on and the axe, and what is it? Lisa's dressed up as a totem pole.
She's a totem pole in respect for the Native American.
That's right.
People.
Oh, she has to get her serious part in. Mm-hmm. And Maggie, what is Maggie? She's just a witch, isn't she?
I think she's just a wee witch, yeah. And then Marge has the lightning bolt down her hair, like Bride of Frankenstein.
Bride of Frankenstein, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then there's another I wanted to actually mention later on, just as we say Bride of Frankenstein. I wanted to remind me to mention the other little Bride of Frankenstein note from episode 3. But yeah, so they're eating all their junk food and stuff, and Marge says something like, "Oh, if you keep eating junk food, you'll have nightmares." And
if you eat all that candy, you'll get nightmares. And they're just like,
"Oh, come on, Marge, shut up."
Yeah, exactly. That's it. They just don't care. Even the fact that they're still eating candy in bed. Still lying there, eating their candy in bed.
I know.
It's brilliant. And even Homer's taking part. Like, he's just scoffing down all the candy the kids have brought home, because he's just given all the candy away that they had because 2 of the bullies come to the door.
That's right.
And he's like, "You're not even dressed up and you're too old anyway." And they're just like, "Give us the candy or we'll egg your house."
I know. And then they egg their
house anyway. Yep.
No. And there was a joke there at the start of the episode before they have the nightmares, where I think Homer's watching TV, and there's some sort of news report or something.
It's the presidential
debate or something.
Yeah, it was something presidential. Can't remember.
I assume it's
some sort of presidential thing. Yeah, it's obviously like a lead up to an election time or whatever. And the news anchor makes like a joke about it, and Homer's just like, "If you don't like it, go to Russia."
I know. I just thought that was very apt to what's happening in the world right now. And exactly. So I wanted to make a note of that and be like, that's very ironic, you know. That
still, that phrase is very much still a part of that culture. If you don't like it, go somewhere else, you know.
Leave, damn it, this is the US of A type thing. But, so the first segment is Lisa's nightmare, and she's having a nightmare, and it opens up in Marrakesh in Morocco, and it's obviously like a marketplace and all that sort of stuff. I thought the first thing, like, I was pissing myself straight away because it was the dude on the rug that was like bendy.
He's
his legs behind his
body contortions, and then his ear like drags him off.
He turns upside down, and his wee ears just walk away. It's fucking brilliant.
Bart's just like, "I could do that too, but I just don't want to." I know.
I thought it was great way to start the episode, and then Homer moves on to the old man selling the monkey's paw, and this whole episode is inspired by the classic short story called The Monkey's Paw, which was written by an author called W. Jacobs, and it's the classic. It's the classic story of, person makes 3 wishes, and obviously these wishes have grave consequences. They think they're going to be good, but they upset fate, and they have horrible consequences. And it is an actual monkey's paw, and also Monkey's Paw is the name of Jordan Peele's production company, who's obviously a massive fan of horror and the Twilight Zone. I think based in episode.
There's a lot of Twilight Zone references in this episode as well, over the 3 stories. But I love the bit. It's when Homer's just bought the paw, and Marge is like, "Why did you buy that ugly old thing?" And he's like, "Oh, I got it from over there." And there's like the wee whirlwind. And he's like, "Oh," and then he's like, "Oh wait, no, over there."
I know. And it's just literally across. It's just literally across the marketplace, isn't it?
Yep.
And then I love the old man's like, what is it? He says, "You'll be sorry." Yeah, and they're all just looking at him. Oh, creepy old man though. He's got like 1 tooth.
It's a wee 1 tooth.
What was it?
He says something about He used to be
the president of Algeria.
Yeah, that's it. He's like, "I used to be the president of Algeria."
I know.
Misfortune, grave misfortune.
Grave misfortune. He just keeps saying grave misfortune. Brilliant. Great way to
So,
start an episode. I just instantly was like, this feels like it's better. It feels like the jokes are a little bit sort of quicker, and
it's more polished. The animation's more polished. The writing's a lot more polished by this point because I mean it's it's third season now. You can tell they're hitting their stride in terms of quality overall. But I think I still just prefer the stories in the first one.
Aye.
But we will continue to discuss because these are still great. They're still great stories. But
so obviously, he takes this monkey's paw back to
it's the bit when they're in the Marrakesh airport, and it's a reference to Midnight Express.
Oh,
when the airport security guy stops him and he's like, lift up your top, sir, and he's got all the souvenirs taped to his chest, and the security all pulls their guns on him, and they're like, you have to pay a fine, $2 American.
I know, and Homer's like, okay, and then it just cuts to them being back home then, but and they're like all arguing over what they're going to wish for, obviously, and isn't it Maggie? She takes up and she makes like a secret wish, and she wishes for a new pacifier. But before that, they see the big limo. They see the big limo, and obviously they think, "Oh, what's this? We're going somewhere special, or we're getting a new car or something." And then this guy turns up with a flashy pillow and a wee pacifier.
Yep.
And then, so actually, in this one, it's not 3 wishes; it's 4 wishes that they get, isn't it?
Yep. And then so you get Maggie gets her pacifier. And then Bart takes it, and he wishes for the Simpsons to be rich and famous, and all the money starts falling out.
That's right.
And then they go out. They're like, let's go get a fancy dinner. But when they're out in the restaurant, then people are kind of talking about them behind their back, being like, "Oh, we're fed up of hearing about the Simpsons." You start seeing all the they're doing
merchandising
and stuff. Yeah, and it turns out that with the fame comes all the grief.
Because of fame
as well.
They've become celebrities.
Yes,
Springfield, not just Springfield, but the world now. And then it cuts to all the merchandise, and they're doing ads on TV and this big billboards.
It's the Bart's billboard where it's like, have a mammogram, man.
I know. And then you see that, I can't remember what her name is, the neighbor, or is it one of the teachers or something? She's like, damn, I hate those Simpsons.
Miss Krabappel, yeah.
Miss Krabappel, that's it. It's fucking great, brilliant, and it's a good play on the whole, celebrity and fame and all that sort of stuff. But it's Lisa then who then gets the 3rd wish, and she obviously, being Lisa, wishes for world peace, which you think, oh, what harm could come from world peace? So you see the UK Prime Minister talking to the Argentinian Prime Minister or the president or whoever it is. I know.
That was a bit of a political joke, the way it's like, oh, sorry about that, old chap, and they were like, oh, we sort of knew it was yours anyway. Just like, oh.
Then you get all the police and the military throwing their guns away, and Krusty and all comes up, and he's like, I don't need this anymore. He throws like 3 guns away, and Moe's there too, and he throws. So the idea is that nobody in America, or the world actually, the whole of the world has any sort of...
They're doing the hands across America kind of thing, and everybody's holding hands.
They don't have any military defense, so obviously that leaves them open to extraterrestrial attack, which comes in the form of our good old buddies from episode 1, Kang and Kodos. They return in this episode. But just before they come in, though, it's funny because you kind of get like you see the Pentagon, and it's been changed in a wall, hasn't it? It's like 5-point wall or something.
Yeah, they're changing it into that there, and then they've changed like a missile training ground. There's a danger sign, and one of the kids goes over and rearranges it, and it says garden.
A garden, that's right, yeah.
So there's a bit of a montage of the world being put to rights with the world peace and all. And then, as you said, the spaceship comes with Kang and Kodos, and they're like, silly humans. They've gone and doomed themselves, and they land, and they come out with it's a club and a slingshot. And they're like, you puny humans can't defend yourselves against our puny weapons.
I know. It's hilarious because they obviously take over, and everyone blames the Simpsons because it was their fault that they wished for world peace.
Yeah.
And then they didn't. They actually didn't get world peace in the end because they've been attacked by aliens. But yeah, it's pretty funny. And then that's when the line was, it was just some guy who was like, I was just bored with all the merchandise, but now I want them to die.
Yep.
Oh, that was a funny...
It's when Lenny is going along, and he's like, "We could have saved an A-bomb or two."
I know. That's right, aye.
And then and then Homer, they're like, "Oh, we need to do the last wish to kind of reverse this." And Homer grabs it, and he's like, "No, this is my wish." And he wishes for a turkey sandwich on rye.
I know. And then the turkey's dry, and he's like, "Damn you!"
No, yeah, so what was it? He's like, "What could possibly go wrong?" He's like, and he's like describing it, and then he's like, "The turkey's a little dry. The turkey's a little dry." Yeah.
And he's going mad, and then he ends up giving the paw away, doesn't he? He ends up giving it to
He
Ned.
gives it to Ned, yep. Mm-hmm. And then
Ned the paw comes back. Whenever he gives it to Ned and passes on possession of the item, that the fingers come back up, so he's got the 4 wishes again. And the first thing Ned wishes for is for the aliens to go away, which, you know,
it's
happens,
just Mo chasing them with a board with a nail in it.
It's got a nail in it. He's like, "There's a nail in it," and he's running away. And they fuck off. They fuck off onto the spaceship, and then randomly Ned Flanders' house changes into like the Magic Kingdom castle.
Yep. And then now he's been lifted away. He's the savior, and he's like, "This thing's great, Homer."
I know, but there's a great line near the end of that segment where Kang and Kodos are on their spaceship again, and they're like, "Oh, one day the humans will self-destruct again. They'll wish for this and they'll wish for that, and they'll self-destruct." And it's kind of a good, kind of weird meaning to, actually humans always are their own worst enemy, basically.
Yeah. Ultimately, we're just going to repeat the same cycles and just lead to our own demise.
Exactly. Yeah. So so I thought that was quite a nice way to end the segment.
Yep.
I know, but on to segment 2, and this is Bart's nightmare.
Yep. So Lisa's she wakes up screaming, and then goes into Bart's room and asks, "Can she get in beside him?" And Bart's like, "No." And she's like, "I'll give you my candy necklace."
That's right.
And Bart takes and he just throws it all in his mouth. Then he pulls string in. He's like, "Hop aboard." And she gets in, and then that's his dream starts, which is a lovely reference to a Twilight Zone episode, I believe. Was it?
It's a good life. Day. It's a good life. Aye.
Yeah.
Where Bart is omnipotent, where he has full power, unlimited power, and basically he's like, the episode starts. I love the way it starts because it starts with like them walking along just the street, and everyone's like, "Happy thoughts, happy thoughts," and you're like, "What the fuck's going on here?" And then you find out that Bart is this 10-year-old monster. There's a narrator actually, and he's sort of slowly telling you the story about how Bart is the monster who has power over everybody in the world because he's omnipotent and can literally think of anything. And if he does think of it, it happens. So everyone's just like, don't even think of anything because Bart will be able to read our minds and change us into fucking squids and frogs and, well, he changes Homer into Jack in the Box, doesn't he?
Yeah, he turns, is that old boy, what does he call the old boy? Is it Hester? I can't remember, but the old boy, he turns him into a dog,
That's
but with the human head.
Yeah, the head of it.
Yeah, which I think, is that not a reference to Invasion of the Body Snatchers? I think.
It could be, yeah.
I think it's maybe a reference to something
it's the Thing, isn't it? Maybe the Thing.
Maybe.
Something, I don't know, yeah. It's a bit of a nod to one of those anyway.
Yep. So he turns it in, and then the narrator says, "And he's a 10-year-old boy," and that's Bart walks into the kitchen, the Simpson kitchen then. And he's
Marge is like serving him food, but she's being very polite and careful not to upset him, and Homer's doing the same. And
it was the cat Snowball walks in, and he's like, "The cat's kind of boring. Let's change that." And he makes Snowball into like this like red and white striped crazy creature.
He's got big eyes. Has he got longer legs?
Big leggy legs.
He's wearing like a skirt and all, and he breathes fire, doesn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
Burns the curtains.
Yep.
And they're all like, they're all laughing like fucking crazy people. It's actually a really good concept, but also frightening. Like, I'm pretty sure the original Twilight Zone episode's probably pretty frightening.
Yep.
That's a very scary thing to think of, that somebody would have this kind of power.
Especially a child, yeah.
There's a great line whenever Bart goes on the school bus, and he's like, "Hey guys," and they're all like, "Hoo-hoo," but he says to Otto, "Oh, I'm driving the bus today," and Bart jumps on, starts driving, and Otto's like, "This is fun, we're all gonna die," because he doesn't care. I love Otto. Otto's tits anyway, so he's
he's grand.
And then he goes to school, and there's a thing where the teacher's like, "Oh, we have to change the history," because Bart decided that history has changed, and they start saying that the world's now called Bonerland or something. What is it he says?
I can't even mind.
It's like Bonerland, and basically just the universe only started from the 1940s, and he's basically changing the history of the world.
Yep.
Just making stuff up as he goes along because he's just a wee shite. So it's a wee 10-year-old shit. And then
was it Principal Skinner sings the wee song? Intercom, and
there's like a wee whistle before it, and then he sings the song.
He sings the wee song, and then he's like, what was it after that? He says something, everyone's tending to Bart, and he's like, one more time. And he starts again. So and
then it quickly goes to where Homer's watching American football, and he's got a bet on, and Bart's like, I want to watch Krusty, and then Homer's like, nah, but then he changes Homer into Jack in the Box, which
not yet.
That's
me. That's not even yet. It's the bit.
Oh, it's later on. That's right.
It's the football game, and then you hear the commentator go, "The ball's just turned into a fat man."
Yeah,
Homer hits
You're right. It's the episode after that whenever Homer decides, right, I've had enough of this. I'm going to kill Bart, and he goes down with a chair, and Bart's like, does that with his finger, and Homer turns. That's class.
It's the bit where after Homer's like being turned into the football and hits the post, and was it the commentator's like, well, we know when anything strange happens, it's down to Bart, and that's great.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah. It cuts over to the Krusty show, and Krusty's just like big bags under his eyes. He's just like, well, we've been going for 364 straight hours now.
Hello. Yeah, because Bart won't let me stop.
Yep, he's
like really fat, and he's even fatter than he was.
Let's head over to Sideshow Mel and see if he has any more of those legal over-the-counter stay-up drugs.
Hello, brilliant. I think it's great. Brilliant. So but and then so Homer gets changed into the Jack in the Box, and then Marge has had enough, and she's like, right, we need to go and see a therapist. So they take him to a child therapist, and he's like, oh, Bart just craves attention. This is all, he's being bad just because he craves attention, and he doesn't care about the ramifications, really. And they find out that he craves attention from Homer, because he never really had that attention from Homer, his own father. And this is all still while Homer's a Jack in the Box, by the way, so he's kind of like nodding back and forth. And he's like, oh,
I see you agree with me, Mr. Simpson. And he's like, no, it's just the air conditioning.
Hello. I'm not nodding, it's just the air conditioning. That's fucking killed me, man. And he's still nodding, and it's brilliant.
Yep.
And then
and then we get the montage.
We get that amazing montage with the awesome music where it's like Homer and Bart reconnecting as father and son, and they're playing football, and they're
but he's a Jack in the Box still.
They're great because there's a great shot where they're out in a lake fishing, and obviously Bart's got the fishing rod, and Homer's like just nodding back and forth. He's still a Jack in the Box, and then they're shooting and stuff, and they go to a theme park. They're in a roller coaster, and as they go over the top, Homer's head's still there because obviously he's a Jack in the Box. He's got no proper body.
So the spring's just like
he's just springing. Brilliant, fucking hilarious, man.
That's so good. And then was Homer's like tucking him into bed, but he's like biting the blanket to like pull up over him, and then Bart's like, oh, that was really great, Dad. That was a lot of fun. You know, I had a good time. And he's like, oh well, son, I'd really appreciate if you'd give me my body back. And he gives him like a wee kiss on the forehead, and that's when Bart wakes up then, because the thing that scares him most is affection from his dad.
Exactly. I know, it's really ironic that
I love how it flips it.
Yeah, that's the thing that wakes him, is the fact that him and his dad had bonded like an actual proper father-son classic relationship. And he's like, oh, Dad. And then they sort of like hug and snuggle and stuff. And then he wakes up screaming, like, just fucking. So that's great. Brilliant segment. Really good segment.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move on to Homer's nightmare. And that's when, isn't it, Lisa and Bart then run and jump into their bed?
They jump into the bed and they're like, we want him beside you. And Homer's like, are you toilet trained?
Hello. What the fuck? Like. So but this is the one with Mr. Burns and Smithers, and Mr. Burns for me is the greatest. Like, he's the best Simpsons character. Well, one of the best.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good characters in Simpsons.
Who's your favorite? Is Mr. Burns your favorite? Yeah.
I think so, just because of his voice as well. Obviously, he's a good character, but his voice makes everything sound funny. Like no matter what it is he says, he's just funny. And the relationship with Smithers, which sort of kind of evolves over time, obviously, and Smithers has this sort of thing for him, but I just think it's great. I think they're both great, and
I love his "Say My Best" song is one of the best in Simpsons song history. It's definitely great, but I think if I had to pick a favorite Simpsons character, it is between Ralph Wiggum and Grandpa Simpson.
Yeah,
are my two sort of. In fact, I actually have. Hold on.
We're going to get another wee
thingamabob.
A few moments later.
Ew.
With Blinky.
Happy days.
Ralph Wiggum.
Oh fuck!
And Grandpa Simpson.
I'm a Star Wars.
I'm a Star Wars. I love the Grandpa Lego figure comes with a newspaper which has "Old Man Yells at Cloud" on it, which kills me.
Obviously, that's become like a classic meme now.
Yep.
As well.
And then the Ralph Wiggum one has the "I choose you" Valentine's card as well.
Class.
Yes.
Do you know? I actually forgot about Ralph's great too.
Because Groundskeeper Willie appears in this particular story as well.
He does. You're right. He does. That's right.
Yep.
He's brilliant, and I like how he just sort of shows up every so often.
He gets one of the best. He gets one of the best Treehouse of Horror character sort of play on characters ever later on.
I'm trying to think. Do you know this? Do you not know? I probably do.
Actually relates to what you've got going on behind you.
Ooh, happy days. Okay, there's quite a bit
going
on behind me. But
we will get there. We will get there.
We will get it. I think I know what it is. So the third segment is Homer's Nightmare, and he gets into it with Mr. Burns. Obviously, Homer is like one of the worst workers of all time, has no work ethic at all. But it opens up with Mr. Burns and Smithers, like looking at all the TV monitors and slagging off all their workers and being like, they're all shit. And then Smithers does that thing where he's like, oh, I think you should fire them. Fire one of the staff members to sort of put them all, on alert, I suppose. Yeah. And then he obviously picks Homer because Homer's sleeping. Yeah. So he fires Homer as part of the random firing. And then Burns is just like, he actually is like he is a horror character in itself, just the way he's bent over and he's got the marks in his head.
Long nose.
Big beak. And he's just, and the way he talks, he's got that real horrible sort of slithery talk.
He gets a reference in one of the later Treehouse of Horror as well, which is so perfect for him.
He gets quite a few, doesn't he?
He does get quite a few, but there's one in particular that I'm thinking of that, again, we will get to. Yeah. But I'm sure we're thinking the same one.
There's one I'm definitely thinking of, and he actually looks very much like the character.
Yeah.
Which is very classic. It's a classic image as well. But there's a few other ones I think that, is there not one where he turns into some sort of creature later on? Maybe I'm getting mixed up. But he definitely turns into one of the most famous horror villains of all time.
Yeah.
And definitely a film that we're going to be covering.
Oh, yeah. Both the Simpsons version and the actual version.
Or,
the mini renditions of the actual version.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
But there's a great line there where Burns is like, Smithers, let's go to the laboratory. And then they go down into their lab and it's all full of lab equipment. And he unveils this secret that he's been working on steel.
Yep.
Because he thinks human flesh is like too weak. And he's got this
weak
idea.
And fragile.
Yeah, he's got this idea that he's steel's stronger and he's going to make the perfect employee. But there's one thing, it doesn't have a brain. It's just a shell.
Yep. So it is sort of, I think what I liked about this one is the Frankenstein-esqueness of it, because I love the Frankenstein book and the renditions of Frankenstein. So this year one definitely I really enjoyed because I do love me some Frankenstein.
Man, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with Frankenstein.
I love me some Frankenstein. I have a fantastic edition of the Frankenstein book with a foreword by Guillermo del Toro.
Nice.
And it's got some lovely illustrations in it too, and has a bit of a history about
Sexy.
Frankenstein and the history, cinema history of Frankenstein and stuff in it. So, but yeah, no, I love this. But there's the bit just before they go down into the lab, they're just firing Homer, and they're going through the intercom, and it's like, Homer Simpson, wake up, and he's like, how do you know what I'm doing? We're looking at you through the CCTV. And Homer's like looking around the office for it.
And then he's like, he goes right up to it. He didn't realize the fucking camera there. What a stupid cunt.
I love him. I love Homer.
I love Homer, obviously. He's amazing.
Yep.
But I just love Burns and how he talks about people. He's such a horrible, horrible person.
Yeah.
And the way he talks about, his employees is just really horrific.
It's not even the Halloween one, but the one where he's like losing his mind and he's like, get in the spruce moose.
I know. But yeah, just getting back to Frankenstein, like I love everything to do with Frankenstein as well. And I've read the book. I'm not a massive lover of the book. Like, obviously I recognize it's one of the most important novels ever written, but I love the movie. Like, I love the original Universal adaptation of the movie starring Boris Karloff, and I love all the other renditions of it that came later. But yeah, Frankenstein's awesome, man. He's the man. Well, he's not the man, he's the monster, but yeah, so this is very much influenced by Frankenstein, and he needs to get a brain for his robot. I say, just before we get there, he says he's a really cool line where he says to Smithers, he's like, "This is the greatest invention since the cat o' nine tails," which is a reference to the cat o' nine tails, which is it's like a whip.
Type of whip, yeah. So it's like a whip that comes down into nine tails, which normally has studs at the end of it. Yeah, because what is it? It's the best
people with it.
It's the best innovation in labor. Was it? He says something. It's like the best innovation in labor incentive.
That's
in the last century.
That's it. Yeah, because I think they used to use it on like naval ships and stuff, didn't they? Or like,
I think it was
back
used
in the day.
You always see it. It's always one of those references when you see like people like driving slaves. They're always like whipping them with cat o' nine tails. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's also a wee bit of a reference to Dario Argento's 1971 film with the same title. I thought that was kind of funny. But so he's looking for a human brain, and then we get that great scene where Homer has now become a gravedigger because he can't find anything that he can do because he's so stupid.
He's underqualified.
Bart's going through the papers with him, isn't he? He's like, so he becomes a gravedigger, and then that's when we meet Willie, and he's digging a grave, and Willie's doing what Willie does. He's shouting at him.
He's just shouting down at him.
Oh, so good. He's just so good. He's got so many good lines.
Mm-hmm.
But what is it? Homer falls in, doesn't he?
Homer's down. He's down digging the grave, and Willie's shouting at him to go faster and how useless he is. And he's like, "Oh, come, I'm leaving," and he leaves. And Homer's just like, "Oh." He says something about him being a bad boss anyway, and then he like lies down and has a wee nap, and that's when Mr. Burns and Smithers finds him because they're looking for a body.
Again from Frankenstein, whenever Dr. Frankenstein,
Dr. Frankenstein,
and Igor steal the body from the graves. Mm-hmm. So they think Homer's dead. Yep. Initially, they think he's dead because he smells so bad and he looks dead. He looks like a corpse.
Yeah. He looks terrible and he smells.
I know. Once they take him away in the bag, he starts waking up. He's like, "Ooh, ooh!" And Mr. Burns just starts beating him.
Yeah, stop scaring Smithers. He's hitting him with a shovel.
Oh, Burns is the best, man. How could you not think Burns is the best?
So that did crack me up when he's like, "Stop scaring Smithers."
There's another great line from Burns. I've written a few lines here because he's got so many great lines. But Smithers is like, "Oh, you don't want him," and Burns is like, "Who is it? The booger man?" The booger man. I just thought it was fucking brilliant. I love Burns.
It's so funny.
And then they take him back. They take him back to the laboratory. And obviously they start working on him, trying to get his brain out. But it's brilliant as well because he's humming the tune to "If I Only Had a Brain" from The Wizard of Oz, which I thought was really cool. And then he does that. This completely, I broke when he did this. He got the brain and put it at his head, and he was like, "Look, I'm Davy Crockett." And it was just the shape of Davy Crockett's hat.
So funny. And the wee stem, the bit of brain stem hanging down the back like a wee tail.
So good. And it was the way he did it. It was so childlike, wasn't it? It was just like, Smithers, I'm Davy Crockett, and he's got this brain in his head. What a fucking brilliant scene that was.
So funny.
I know.
So
I was pissing myself. And then, so obviously, he gets the brain, he puts it into the robot, and then the robot's kind of like shit.
Basically, he does the whole "it's alive" thing. You know, of course,
he does that whole famous scene from Frankenstein. You know, one of the most famous scenes in cinematic history is the "it's alive" part.
Yep.
So the robot comes alive, and they soon realize that, oh god, he's got his brain.
It's like scanning the room, and then it like X-rays through to another room and sees the donuts and just breaks through the walls. Beeline straight for the donuts. That's it then.
And then it just pisses off. A bit like what Frankenstein's monster does in the movie. Goes and does its own thing, and Burns is all sitting there. He's all sad.
Yep. Whereas he does the whole I shouldn't have been playing God. And then he goes to take the brain out of it. Then he's like, "Oh, I'll take the brain out," and Smithers says to him, "But shouldn't you put it back in his body?" And then he gets crushed. Gets crushed by the robot.
That's right. But just before that, you're right. He says something like, "Oh, throw the brain away" or something, or dump it or something like that. After he's like, "Oh," being really sympathetic and being like, "I shouldn't have played God. Life is precious," and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, "What do you want me to do with the brain?" "Oh, just dump it."
Yeah.
But I wanted to say, actually, the reference to Bride of Frankenstein is that Mr. Burns looks very much like Dr. Pretorius from the Bride of Frankenstein. I don't know if you've seen.
Okay, no, I haven't seen Bride of Frankenstein.
Google it. He looks exactly like Dr. Pretorius, and I would nearly to the point where I'd imagine that they almost, when they were making the sketches of Mr. Burns.
I think when you post this video, you should do a wee side by side.
I'll do a little splicey of Dr. Pretorius.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I just thought it was funny because it just reminded me when he did the whole "it's alive" part.
Yeah,
it reminded me of kind of that kind of, although it's not Dr. Pretorius that says that in the original film. But yeah, so he says, "Oh, it's just it's an abomination." He's crying and all, and then eventually he goes over to the robot and he kicks him, doesn't he? Just does that wee feeble kick, a wee pathetic kick, and as he's walking away, the robot starts to fall, and Smithers is like, "Run!" and Mr. Burns is just like walking really slowly, but obviously he's running, but that's how slow he runs because he's an old man. And then the robot falls on him, and fucking hell, we get another couple of great lines there from Burns. What is it he says? Every bone shattered, organs leaking, vital fluids, I'm going to die. And then Smithers is like, obviously he tells Smithers to, what is it he says, go and get the scalpel or something
like that. And
then you're kind of left hanging a wee bit there because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to Homer
screaming. Yep, but it's not because of his dream. He's like, "Bart bit me."
I know. That's it.
Bart's like, "You were crushing me, but I tried to scream, but my mouth was full of lard."
Full of flab, I think it was, wasn't it?
Full of flab. Yep.
And then Homer gets up, and then you realise that fucking Smithers, he looks in the mirror and like Mr. Burns' head has been sewn onto his shoulder as a second head, and he's like,
got the thing with two heads. Then reference
there,
heads, Yep.
And then Homer's like, "It was all a dream," or was it? Or Smithers says, or I keep calling him Smithers, Mr. Burns.
Mr. Burns.
Mr. Burns says, "It's all a dream," or is it? And then that's it. It cuts.
Yep.
But brilliant ending, and then you get the credits, and then you get a little. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a little scene after the credits. It's like mid credits where they're all sitting eating dinner, and it's Homer and Mr. Burns has got his.
Oh yes, and he's meant to be going to a show or something. He's like, Homer's like, "Oh, I want to go down to Moe's," and then Mr. Burns is like, "But we have the whatever recital tonight."
That's right. It's like some operatic orchestral type thing. It's like a really posh event or something. And I nearly missed that because I was like, because the credits started coming up, and then I was like, "Oh, that must be it." You know, I was writing a few notes down, and then I came on. I was like, "I'm glad I didn't miss that." But That was funny. Just a great way to end it. And that whole segment, man, was brilliant. I love Mr. Burns. As I said, like, he just looks funny and he sounds funny. Everything he says sounds hilarious to me.
Yeah.
And then
when fantastic voice, you know.
Fantastic voice, and then when you add in the characteristics, you know, and obviously his character, as I said, evolves over seasons, but he's such a fragile old man.
Yeah.
He can't do anything for himself, but he's so rich that he just throws money away and he owns pretty much everybody, but he literally can't do anything for himself. And then when you add in this other thing with Smithers, who has this kind of infatuation with him later on in some of the seasons, it's great. What a great character. I love him.
He's so good. He is very, very good, but I still think Ralphie Wiggum. He's still one of the best.
I'm sure Ralph turns up in quite a few of these.
I think Ralph does. I think he gets a couple. I think there's definitely one with the leprechaun, I think.
Oh,
Ralph,
brilliant. Yes.
From what I remember. So, yeah. But again, we will get there.
We'll get there.
So
we're hoping to, obviously, we've said before in our first episode, and we'll repeat it now, we're going to try and cover every single episode of Treehouse of Horror. I think we've got about 30 in total to cover, or thereabouts.
I think, well, we've done the 2 now, so I think we have at least 29, 30 left to do. So, yeah.
We'll try to do a couple of episodes per season of Monday Night Frights, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll do a couple in a row. Maybe we'll cover more than one in each, or, you know, in an episode. We'll see how it goes. But for now, we're going to head on. Thanks for watching this episode. Watch next Monday's episode. We've got something special planned. And as always, follow us on Twitter at the Fright Club NI and on Instagram at the Fright Club NI, and check out the website www.thefrightclubni.com. Danny, anything else you want to say before we head on here?
No, I think we're best. We'll save all our announcements for next week. We've got a couple of big things coming up, and really excited for quite a lot to mention.
Next week's episode is going to be a really cool episode, but we're also going to be doing not one but 2 announcements in that episode for other stuff that's going to happen. So so we're very excited. Thanks for everyone who's following us and watching all these. We really appreciate it. We love all you guys. None of this stuff makes us money. It's not monetized. We're doing it all out of the love. And if you want to support us, by the way, you can check out the website www.thefrightclubni.com. There's a little tab there at the top that says support. You can click on that and you can donate a little, a little bit of donation there, whatever you think, a couple of £1 each. What do you think? You don't have to. We're not. Price of a coffee, exactly.
Price of a coffee. If you enjoy the chat, we're just a couple of ghosty loving ghouls.
Yeah.
We love having a chat, and if you enjoy our chat, why not get us a coffee to keep ourselves hydrated? Oh, hey, Bart.
Bart is saying support us. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate all the love and support so far. You won't want to miss next week's episode. You won't want to miss the announcements that we've got coming. Keep checking us out and keep telling your horror pals. But until next week, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you next week. Cheers, guys. Bye.